Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. So this is a historical chat, by the way. This is only number 2. The first one does count, but the second one I think counts better because I've worked on a couple things. I've got like the camera in a better spot, but that's not what's important. What's important is having this incredible page on TikTok. I've been reaching out on TikTok and making buddies, and I'm so glad I did because this is Chris. Welcome, Chris, from The Real Bookaholic.
Thank you. This is pretty exciting for me. I mean, as an old guy, I'm crushing it now technologically. I mean,
You
I have
are.
a mic that works. I have lights.
You got a beard?
I'm
The
live.
beard.
I have a beard, and I have books. So I'm in the right place.
You are, dude, 100%. And I've been pumped for this. The first time, as a lot of anybody who's watching, the scheduling issues have been in abundance like the last 3 weeks, but we're back now. It's all we're getting there, okay? And this is the start of it. And I'm just so excited to be talking because what I look for when I want to talk to somebody is just like their personality, man. And you just seem like somebody I could crack a beer open with and just have a conversation. And then it's like we love books. I mean, I know you love books. And I like books compared to what your love for books is, I think, and we'll get into that. But
yeah, I think we could be best friends. That's what I think. That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly right, dude. 100,000%. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Where do you hail from tonight, and kind of anything you want to say?
Well, first, yeah, I'm super pumped. By the way, the intro music, it was terrifying. So I definitely, it was hardcore, little screamo, little
Wakes you up.
I mean, I felt like my spine was being ripped out of me. So
that's actually the point, and I'm glad.
So anyway, I have actually a pretty big career in music. I did a lot of music back in the old days. You probably heard of the band I was in, Boys to Men. But then after that,
you look just like the guys. I mean, listen, I have to say.
I mean, camera adds 5 pounds, 10 pounds. And the point is that, no, I live in Syracuse, New York, north of Syracuse. It's fall right now. It's gorgeous. I love being here. I've been here about 10 years. Before that, Ohio. Before that, Florida. So traveled around a bit. But my addiction for books has been since I was a fetus, practically. In fact, the older generation, that kind of was in a way a little bit of a reward structure. So you had, if you can behave or if you're good, we can go out to the library or we can go to a bookstore, or even in school, there was competitions for how many books can you read. And then, you can get a star to go on your flag, and whoever has the most wins a big prize. So, yeah. So anyways, I had to find a house big enough for all my kids and big enough for all my books. And we found a place in central New York, and I love it. It's been great.
Now, your autumn or fall time into winter, you're around a lot of trees, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you see the pines, maples.
It's all of that. We live on close to 80 acres. So it's, wow. It's a bunch of rednecks and hillbillies up kind of where I live. When you think New York, everybody thinks of the city, which, we're a few hours away from there. But we're in, technically it's called Central New York. Most people think of us in upstate New York, but it is stunning. People come from all over the world just to look at the fall foliage, and it is pretty incredible.
That's what I would come to New York for. Like, I've never been to New York City. In fact, I've never been to New York, period. And my wife told me, before she met me, she went on like this trip where she just dropped everything and wanted to go see New York City. And she was in New York City and wanted to do a direct U-turn just to go back home, just because how busy it is. By the way, I'm in Appalachia, Ohio, like Chillicothe, Columbus. That's where I am.
Yeah, we weren't too far. We lived in Steubenville, right on the edge of Ohio. I was there for about 13 years. So right by Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm very familiar with your neck of the woods. And yeah, there's some similarities between there and actually where I'm at right now, interestingly. But
the hills, the trees turning.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
It's beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah.
It is.
People don't think that about Ohio, but I mean, it converges right there with West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And if you're an outdoorsman, like especially a northern outdoors, if you like to hunt deer, Turkey, maybe closer to northern Ohio. It's a great spot. In fact, my dad works with the dude that got the biggest deer in Ohio, in Wilmington, where I grew up, Wilmington, Ohio.
Huh.
So that's here in Ohio. And then my dad and mom grew up in Michigan, which is my favorite state. Love Michigan.
Yeah, I was born in Detroit, so yeah, I'm a Michigander.
Livonia.
That's so insane.
Dude,
It is a
isn't it?
small world after all.
It is.
Freaking Walt Disney.
Livonia, by the way, guys, is a suburb of Detroit. So that's super cool, man. I love those kind of things. And you have children?
I got a lot of children. My wife and I, we have 9 children. I only have one wife. We're
Only one.
we're very fertile. She's probably downstairs giving birth right now, for all we know. So 5 girls, 4 boys. By the way, my wife is familiar with all my jokes. She's cool. We're in a good place. So I mean,
I respect that.
We met when we were in high school. We were high school sweethearts. We were 17 years old, and we fell in lust, and then in love, and then we we got married at 21. I mean, it's been crazy. So we're having a blast. I kind of that's a big thing for us, is that we just want to live the adventure and have fun. And for us, kids were not like an inconvenience to our journey and our dreams. It was difficult, that's for sure. But right now, in some ways, like, it's really kind of cool to watch my kids now getting married and having their own kids, and it's a rush. So we're nuts, and everybody's like, "Don't you know how that happens?" Like,
I know. My dad said that to me, dude. It's like, yeah, you don't have to tell me, but
like, I would consider myself an expert
Yeah.
with regards to that. So, and it has nothing to do with TVs. We have one in every room. We still keep having kids. So, I don't know.
I love that, dude. Because now, see, I have 4, and people say that to me, and I can't imagine the exponential growth in that joke at 9.
Oh, dude,
But-
it's hilarious. But 4, I mean, we always tell people one kid can be overwhelming and almost earth-shattering at any given moment. But
yeah,
4, I mean, you're nuts with 4. Once you cross 3, you're crazy as hell. I mean,
it's
that's
a ratio.
the truth.
Like the ratio, once it's 2 to 1 kids,
Yeah. Like,
I think that's the
you're
threshold
freaking
of
nuts.
like, yeah, you need to get checked. But I have to say, I agree with what you said. Me and my wife used to look at each other and, I'm so bored. And we didn't start having kids until, let's see, when we got married, I was 27, and she was, well, she's a cougar. That's all I'll say. She's my old lady. She's gonna kill me for saying that. But anyway, she was like 29, I believe, 29 or 30. And it was always something that we wanted. And like you said, it didn't interrupt anything, but it sure did come with like challenges I never could have prepared for, no matter who told me any warnings, this or that. It's just something you had to go through.
Yeah. I do think that marriage is kind of like that, which I wish people would talk about a lot more, that we have a preconceived idea in our brain of what we think it's going to look like, be like. And then the reality is oftentimes so different that people are left spinning a little bit. But it is worth it to wrestle through and to learn about yourself, because then the beauty can be incredible together. But, I mean, neither of us really looked at each other and said, "You're trapped. You have to be who you are as a 17-year-old." We kind of just grew. And the weird thing is that, just when it comes to the book arena, like, my house is filled with books. So my wife is obviously very tolerant. But the funny thing is that she probably orders as many books as I do. But they're all different. So she has a really different reading journey. And for us as a couple, learning about each other and realizing that we're different and how that's a complementarity, whether we're talking literary or whether we're talking, adventure and just the way that we live our life. I mean, it's the never-ending journey. I mean,
Yeah.
Anyway.
And no, I love that point, because real quick, my wife is very picky when it comes to books. She never orders physical books, by the way. She is a Kindle lover, and she never expected that, by the way. She's like, me, I have to have a physical book. Me personally, I have to feel the book. Now, she's been brainwashed. I'm going to call it brainwashed. But she told me to tell you, because I show her all your videos, and because I love to watch your stuff. And I said, "Babe, you say I have stacks of books? Let me show you something." And she's like, "So go in there." She's like, "Tell him if he switches to digital, it can clear some of those
But
stats.
I have digital. You can tell her, like, literally, I have
She's watching.
digital. I probably have a couple thousand books on my digital platform. So I read at night with that. But anyway, it's a long story, but the truth is that I have it all. And it's a problem. It's not, when I say I'm a bookaholic, I mean, I think once you walk into our house, you realize, oh, this isn't a shtick. He really needs a therapist. My wife is a therapist, but we're beyond help now. When you walk right now into my office, it is. I'm gonna die in there with the stacks falling on me, and that's probably why I started having to sell some of the duplicates at least because.
You have 805 books on your Pango, bro.
Oh yeah,
Holy
well,
moly.
but that's nothing. I still have probably at least that I still need to upload. I really have been trying to figure out where I'm trying to focus my attention, and I realized I think it has to be every platform that allows me to potentially sell books
Sure.
because
eBay's terrible though, just from experience.
yeah,
I,
I bought a couple off there.
I haven't sold any
Anyhow.
though. Like I have like some up there, and I'll sell on Pango, and I only have like 40, 50 books on there. And it's a lot easier to sell everywhere other than, I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, but no, I love that. And by the way, I'm halfway through your list. I've added some to the cart, so I'll be checking out soon. You've got some good ones, man.
Oh, nice.
On Pango, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it's super eclectic. So I do notice I have a huge fantasy sci-fi for understandable reasons. Clientele, if you will, when it comes to Pango. But I mean, I just picked up some books on lumberjack, like logging work, that I just was super geeked about the other day. And then I found some books on like a goat herder. It was hilarious. And then we've been buying books on soap, and we're making paper. Anyway, like, so I feel like it's weird because most people want to go to the online platforms to learn, which I get that. But I mean, 2020 in a lot of ways was kind of like, hey, just for the what it's worth category, things may not work out the way you always want them to. And so in that scenario, what are you going to do? And I've been preparing for the zombie apocalypse for decades. Let me just say, we're close to ready.
So I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of there's a lot of reasons I started reading, and I didn't start reading. We'll get into that soon, but uh, to learn, isn't learning a never-ending adventure that is so fun?
Well, I'm a forever student. I'm a forever
Yes.
student. I mean, I have a master's degree. Actually, I have what's a very fancy a degree that's anyway, I won't go into that. I'm just simply saying and I teach. I've taught in university settings. I still do. So I love teaching, but I love learning. So for me, if I can be introduced to a topic, a subject, an idea that is new for me, I'm not upset or bothered by that. Like, there's something about that that's super geeky for me.
Yes.
We dive in.
100%. It's like, what rabbit hole can I put my attention into next? I'm the same way. It's like,
Yeah.
whether it's black holes or
Oh yeah,
like
I love
the
that
the
stuff.
crap where finally Elon Musk caught a booster, dude. Get out of here. Like, people were telling him he was in a dream world, and just all that cool stuff. It just doesn't really matter because there's so many different areas that you can learn about. And again, just like you were kind of touching on, reading doesn't just mean physical or online. It could be in a newspaper, it can be in a magazine article, it can be anywhere. And I think
Yeah.
that one of the reasons, probably not the most important reason, but probably the second most important reason I continue and bug out for books is to learn.
Yeah.
And now I want to address some comments real quick. You guys that were here and are waiting,
Look, you and
so
Boys to Men. Somebody
yeah,
said.
I was going to go back to that one, but they're talking. My vote is
Oh,
on Ashley. That's my wonderful other half. By the
yeah.
way, Molly, she's my wife's reading her book right now. Uh, why can't I think of the name, dude? It's right on the top of my, just because I thought of it. Dark Bloom. Hold on, it's right here.
Molly is your. Oh, Ashley is your wife.
Ashley's my wife, and my wife's reading Molly's book.
Oh, very cool, Molly. I
Yeah. Why
didn't
can't
know
I
you
think of
were.
the name of your damn book, dude? I've been looking at it all day.
Listen, this is par for the course. If you need to find something, it's not going to be present.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Anyway, I was talking to her last night because she published it not too long ago. I had her on when she published it, and it's excellent. My wife is 2 days. She's done with it. She finished it today, Molly. So I had to tell you that. And I did on X. You don't have an X, right, Chris?
I do.
Oh, you do.
I think it's called The Real Bookaholic 1 or
I
something.
looked for you, but I have to tag you after this.
Yeah, listen, anyway, I do have an X account.
I'm glad.
Twitter X, whatever the credit's called.
That way I can tag you in like the replay stuff after we're done here. But
yeah,
I ran a little competition because I posted the thumbnail for us earlier, and then another one. My wife's like, "Hey, you should check this one." So I ran a little competition. The one that won on X, guys, the one you all chose was my wife's. Of course, she's a graphic designer. Why ever even picked that fight?
That's awesome.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just bullheaded, but yes, absolutely, the wife won. So the new and updated thumbnail my wife did. All right.
I thought that was pretty awesome, actually. If it's the one that I posted.
Yeah, it is. I think she did great, and she does it every single day. Like she makes way more money than I do, and it's through graphic art. Dude, endless thinking selling abilities through digital art. It's crazy.
Well, I'm gonna have to probably have a conversation with Ashley because I'm constantly in need of graphics.
Oh, she made the shirt and does my logos and all that fun stuff. She's so good at
awesome.
it. But yeah, EL, my God, he's my moderator, by the way. If there's anybody in the chat that's like been my homie since the very beginning, it's EL Montague. And he loved you in Boys to Men.
Oh, listen, EL, yeah. I mean, the funny thing about that is that I did enjoy a number of their songs, but the only song I have in my head right now is a TLC song, which was Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. So
yeah, One Bended Knee. What do we got?
I thought there was something like I'll Make Love to You and
I'll
all
Make
that.
Love to, yes, that one.
Yeah,
Casey and JoJo
like you
was
want
my
me
favorite.
to. This is getting very personal. Yeah.
Hey, Casey and JoJo, if that's that love music. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 90. So Casey and JoJo was my Boys to Men. I knew of Boys to Men, but I digress.
Well, I mean, the truth is that you could easily argue that they were definitely one of the original boy bands, except for the Beatles. They were probably even some of the early original.
And they wrote about love and feelings.
Well, what about love? Yeah, what's love got to do with it? In the words of Tina Turner.
Exactly.
What's happening here?
Hey, this is my favorite thing. It's funny when it happens because I know it's going to happen every time. The tangents. That's why I go live, man. It's like the best thing ever. We'll be talking about one topic, and because of just how natural the conversation goes, we go 1,000 different ways, and that is the beautiful thing about doing.
Yeah, for the Type A personality out there, this is going to be hell. But for everyone who's struggling with some ADD, you're welcome.
Exactly. We've got your medicine. Right. ELC, are you near Finger Lakes?
Yeah, we are. We're near Skinny Atlas. I mean, near is a little bit of a. We're not too far from Canada, like in between Syracuse and Canada. If you just kind of were cruising up 81. Listen, nice. I love it. I mean, we get more snow here in this neck of the woods than most places in the United States. So,
are you a fan of snow?
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Me
I used
too.
to joke and say my fat body was made for this kind of weather, but I lost some weight.
Snowmobiling, I miss it.
Well, yeah, like snowmobiling and just things like just a fire. Really, starting in October until really spring, almost the beginning of spring, we'll have a fire 24/7 going, and it's all wood burning. That's what we.
I love that.
Oh,
there's
it's
nothing
incredible.
better than the smell.
Oh my God, it's so cathartic. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Now, I've yet to sit at a campfire and read because I started reading when I was 29. I turned 34 next month. So it's still very new to me, a lot of tropes and
really.
Yeah. So, growing up, my parents were great, but they just didn't push they didn't read. They still don't read. And now it's like I'm trying to get them to read. But it wasn't that it wasn't important to them. They didn't really push it. So I found it in the hospital in 2018, 2019. I needed an escape. So ever since that moment, and it started with James Rollins and a fantasy book
That's
called
cool.
Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro.
That's awesome, actually.
And it gave me what I needed.
Yeah, I mean those are the kind of books that give you a little bit of an escape, so you can kind of be somewhere that's exciting and invigorating, and kind of helps you
Yes,
forget some of the crazy crap you got to go through.
1000%. This is
Yeah.
my other half, by the way. She's giggling. And Dark Bloom. In my head, I said Death Bloom. I always mix it up. By the so Molly, my other half, my wonderful wife Ashley. Molly, I just finished Dark Bloom, and oh my God, loved it. And she did. Like, she reads like one or two authors, and once she runs out of books, I don't know what she's gonna do. But she picked your book up and has zoomed through it, and that is not something she does. So you should take that as a huge compliment, Molly. She dug the hell out of your book. Y'all, if you haven't read it yet, you can come thank me later. It's worth it. I binged it and read the whole thing in 2 days. Now I'm sad. It's all over.
That cover's really cool, actually, Molly.
It's
I'm
dope.
digging that. Yeah.
And she's an awesome person. She's and she
Mhm.
writes about what she knows. Like, there's a character, a gentleman character, along with a female character, and the gentleman character is based on a lot of what her husband went through, and it's very cool because
Cool.
if you can relate your story through a book with what you know in real life, it's going to be deep. The reader's gonna feel that.
Yeah. I just bought it, so.
Oh, that's incredible. Check that out, Molly. That's incredible. Thank you, Chris. That's awesome.
It really wasn't hard for me to push that button. Let me just tell you, it's kind of what I do.
That's amazing. I love that. So, all right. So I wrote like 1,000 different topics because it's very easy knowing I was going to talk to you. I knew we would get along on most things. So, you've told us about yourself, and I can't even read my handwriting. What's going on here? When and why? Okay, so when and why? When and why? When and why did you discover? I know you said since you were a fetus, but since that's probably not possible. So when and why did you pick up, and when did you feel your love and passion for literature?
Well, when I was little, my parents, both my parents are artists, and both of them are in the teaching field. So
Okay.
as far as they're concerned, reading was a really important outlet, and they also were not interested in hearing me say I'm bored. So
Yes.
I mean, as a kid, going to the library was a huge deal, and I can remember just grabbing a million books and being able to take them home. And for my father, he would reward me. Would be like we'd go get ice cream. And then I could buy whatever book I wanted at a bookstore. So my parents were divorced when I was a young kid, and in a lot of ways, I think that it was fascinating for me to realize I was in two different worlds. Things were allowed in one family and not allowed in the other family. But what was universal was an appreciation for artistic expression and reading. So music and all of that stuff was a constant like backdrop to really that difficulty. And I really appreciated what you said, though, with the idea of just trying to navigate through some struggle and difficulty, and how books can really offer such a consolation in that. And for me, I think that I have a vivid memory of my stepmother reading to me The Catcher in the Rye.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And we got about 20 pages into it, and I decided after she left the room that I was going to start over, and I read the whole thing through by myself. Like I wanted to say I read that by myself, which I did. So
That's amazing.
I didn't want her to read it to me. I wanted to do that. And it's crazy how all of a sudden, like I got lost in, which is probably one of the more classic and foundational books for especially for young men growing up, and that disillusionment with hierarchy. And when my mother found out that that I had read that book, she was super
How old
pissed.
were you?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, middle school, maybe. I was a
That's
young kid.
impressive.
and she was so infuriated that they allowed me to read that book. My mother was very religious, my
Uh-huh.
father not at all. So it's just interesting how, like, there was something about that experience which was empowering, and it was immersive, and it made me feel like I belonged to a community, like a group of people that weren't afraid to talk about things that were naughty. And long and the short of it was, I as a kid, I read all like the Hardy Boys, and I read, Alfred Hitchcock, the Three Investigators, I think is what it was called. And so it's very interesting. So I had this love for reading, but I would easily say that reading probably changed my life, because just from which we're not going to go down this path necessarily, but I changed my religion, so to speak, my upbringing based on kind of what I read. So I grew up in a really strict Protestant home,
Hmm.
but after reading, and because of reading, I became Catholic, which for many of my family members, like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, they wouldn't have said that because
I
they
can
weren't Catholic.
understand that.
So it was super controversial and earth shaking, but it was all because of books. And I to this day still I love reading philosophical and religious theological books, because they're playing around with themes and ideas that are very important to me.
I
So,
love that you talked about how difficult that was, or maybe difficult for other people to accept
oh
when
yeah,
you made those decisions. And it's important, man. There's a reason you look back on that, and that was an important part of your life. And it's because you, as a man, made a decision through knowledge and you reading and something that was important to you, in a way to shape the way the rest of your life was going to go.
it's
And
crazy.
bravo, man, because you took life by the horns, and I think that that is excellent. And I'm glad that you touched on that. That couldn't have been easy.
No, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, not only is there just a philosophical and overall milieu that every kid picks up from their parents, just an ideology, but
Sure.
I do think that there was this invitation from my parents to kind of not be afraid to ask questions, not be afraid to ask difficult questions. I just don't think that my mother was happy with the solution, which, by the way, we have family and friends that are everything from agnostic and atheistic and, whatever, super fundamentalist, and you name
Yeah.
it, political spectrums on every category and platform. I feel very comfortable getting along with most every single person on the planet. And I'm just, see, this is the other thing I was thinking about, is that I'm a forever student, not just of what's written, but of people. Like, I feel like I can learn from everybody that I meet, and they don't have to hold to exactly what I hold to for me to get along with them.
Anybody who's been watching my channel for a while, y'all are, I know you're itching because I have said so many times that very close, that thing you just said. I could care less if you vote right or left or center, or if your God is this or if your religion is this, man. Because at the end of the day, I wrote, or I created something where we could relate first as humans, and then second about books. And I accept and love humans. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I love humans, and you can bring your beliefs and my beliefs, and they don't have to match. And that we are supposed to overcome that kind of stuff as humans.
isn't
And
it?
I
Yeah.
love that point, Chris. I love that, dude,
No, it's
so
kind of
much.
crazy how we're in a very divided time right now, but not
Very.
just political, but I mean religiously and culturally. Just it, and I've also noticed that there's. My wife likes to say, extremes are easy, balance is hard. I think that's very true.
Oh,
So
wow. Write that down, folks.
the truth is that I think people are ready to die on every single hill, and I don't really understand that kind of a mentality and that kind of a life. There's so much that we still have to learn from one another. And if you're constantly dying on a hill, for that extreme, then it does not allow for you. First of all, why would anybody want what you've got if you don't even look like you want what you've got? People are so miserable and
Oh,
irritable and frustrated, and Yeah, I personally hope that I'm living in such a way that people are like, I'm curious too. I want to know too. I want to ask questions too. I want to grow.
And by the way, like asking you, I'll just talk because I asked you particular to come on my show. Never once did I give 0 ounces of energy towards your beliefs about anything.
Right.
And then the fact that people will precursor or like preconceive someone based on this or that, or actually really not having any idea who they are as people and judge them anyway. I've never understood that. And I'm
No, I
so
don't.
glad that I'm that way. You
Yeah, me
know,
too.
it's
Me
so
too.
refreshing.
Yeah, honestly, some of the people that I follow on whatever TikTok or YouTube or whatever, I don't know anything more from them except that they love these books and I love those books too. And it's kind of an amazing little community of what others might say is just a group of misfits, but I fit in well with a bunch of misfits because that's kind of probably how I felt much of my life was just a
I
little
think the
outside.
most fittable group is those of us who uh, recognize humans are all different.
Right.
There's people who are clicky or it's like, oh no, we're the same as these people. Never will I say that because no, I've never met anybody like me. I've never met anybody like you. We are truly all individuals in the purest form.
Yeah, I will say this. C.S. Lewis has a quote in a book called The Weight of Glory. And basically the gist is you have never met a mere mortal. We've never met a mere mortal. It's with immortals that we marry, that we snub. And I really like that invitation of recognizing that the person next to you, I call it, we need to have like almost like a ridiculous, insatiable curiosity
Yeah.
about people. Because if you're curious about who people are, why they are the way they are, then you're going to learn so many things that'll invite you to become, I think, a fuller expression of what you're meant to be.
I love that, Chris. I love that, man. Man, I'm so glad that we covered that, dude. That is so like foundational to who I am as a person. It's crazy, and I'm glad to hear that's something you relate with, man. Um, kind of to finish on that, if I could, like, there's a lot of people I've noticed too and nobody in particular. I just kind of noticed a mass of people where if you think this way or that way, or you believe in this way or that way, there's no that's the end of the road for them, and there's no more learning about you after finding that fact out. And people are so much more interesting and deserving of your interest and time and love and attention, whatever it is, depending on the topic, than beliefs. And if you stop somewhere and just cut yourself off, you're really hurting yourself and that person. It's like, anyway, I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole, but I think that you're doing a disservice by saying I can't talk to this person because they think this. You can learn from opposition.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
all
It's
right.
kind of curious, Matt, because I was thinking about how you had mentioned a couple books that you started reading when you were in the hospital. And
Mhm.
I often think you can learn a lot about a person with the books that they enjoy, but it's also kind of fascinating because sometimes you might stumble upon a genre or an author that you weren't planning to read, but it just kind of lights up your world. And I was kind of curious if there was an author like that was maybe not immediately on your radar, but you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I think I just found one of my next immediate purchase kind of authors.
1,000%. And I'll tell you, so the very first books that I read were not like physical books, they were audio books in the hospital. That's what I started with. And I just assumed that like thriller, mystery, techno thriller was like my thing. And it is. It is. Like if there's a scale, I'd say that's 7 out of 10 for me. But where I really, really I would thrive as far as like my imagination and the depth of character and how much it kind of gave me that wow factor on the inside, just filled me with joy, was fantasy, man. Like it
Mm.
was in particular, and he writes this is a pseudonym, but J.M. Miro, Miro. And his first book with that pseudonym was Ordinary Monsters in the Talents trilogy. And it's a dark Gothic London, or late 19th century London, Victorian London feel, very gas lamp feel. And it has a X-Men school vibe, but instead of like gravity shifting or uh metal or like being a magnet and this and that like the X-Men. I'm not super huge on X-Men, so I don't know all of their powers. But it's a school of people who never fit in. For instance, instead of waving a wand, some person is he takes the form of a person that's built out of like rotten meat. Sounds crazy. I promise it comes through in the book so well. Another one, her name is I can't remember her name, but she's invisible. She's a 16-year-old girl, and if she wants to be seen, she can. If she doesn't want to be, she's very sarcastic and witty. And
Hmm.
another guy can uh, shape dust and basically use it as a weapon.
Hmm.
And it's just got that dark academia feel that was so different than my initial thought of dark academia, because I think of Harry Potter with adults. That's what my mind would go to.
Hmm.
And this switched that scenery up for me in such a wonderful way, along with the depth of character, the innocence, because they're all children of the
Hmm.
children and kind of the crap that they have to go through. One was a black kid, lots of racial violence he had to go through to kind of get out at the other end. He's very sweet,
Hmm.
always kind of like wanting to make his dad proud, who's not with him anymore. But that book captured me.
That's cool. I haven't actually read that. I do have it. I'll have to go check that out. It's I
It's the
always like
reason
the
we're here.
school trope. I mean, I do like the yeah, that's funny. That's cool. Yeah, it's funny because fantasy for me, I have a vivid memory of going to a bookstore in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is where my dad lived. And I went because usually my father would basically be like, can you just go walk? Um, I guess we had a glitch in the matrix with the internet, it looks like.
What is it?
I think we may have had a glitch in the matrix with the
With
internet.
me?
Maybe so. Yeah,
Oh, are we good now?
I think so. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
somebody just said, "Hey guys, yay, the internet is back." So,
Oh, I think that he meant me, because my internet was out for a while. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Grimfell. By the way, holy crap, this guy's putting out music. He's going to be a star someday. Mark my word, Grimfell. He's going to be a star. Um, but yeah, let me know, Grimfell, if it was one of us or was if you were talking about when my internet was out earlier. Anyway,
cool. Well, anyway, so my dad used to basically say, like go and walk the streets of St. Paul, Minnesota, so he could work on art and whatever. So I went to
mhm.
this store. It was called Harold's Bookstore, and I remember buying my first copy of The Hobbit and
Ooh,
reading it. It was like kind of revolutionary. And then in the 80s when I was doing the high school thing, I have no idea how I stumbled on this, but the Sword of
Terry,
Shannara, Terry Brooks. This smells like
you are. I do the same
bro.
thing.
It's
It's like the
like
smell is right there. I love it.
this book though. I have a memory of just like compulsively not being able to go to sleep. Like it would have been something insane, like 3 in the morning, and I'm still trying to finish this. It was ridiculous. I read right through that initial trilogy. I just couldn't stop. It was crazy.
I hear it's
And
the foundation of so many authors.
well, it's funny because the big complaint in the beginning was that he's just stealing, Tolkien. And just so you know, everyone did. Everybody stole from Tolkien because he was like, it was revolutionary. It's not that those ideas didn't exist before. It's just that he took it to 11, in the words of Spinal Tap.
Yes.
So the thing about it is that there's probably 20 something or more. I don't even know how many. There's so many books in the Shannara world that he probably deserves a break. I mean, he's put his time in, and it's crazy. I just felt like his writing was exactly what I was looking for. It was pretty remarkable.
Was so you're how old were you, do you think, when you read The Hobbit for the first time?
Hmm. Maybe middle school in that arena. It would have been. I remember being a little bit like, let's move on from this, elven poetry. I'm kind of like, we get it. They're singing. So
Sure. Yeah,
let,
lots
let,
of singing.
and he loves trees. So,
Yeah.
but
So
it was crazy.
my very first time reading The Hobbit was 3 months ago. And I have to tell you, the way that I did it, I'm so glad. I originally had the plan to wait. 'Cause my oldest is 5. And I started to try to read The Hobbit to him like 2 years ago. And my wife's just like, dude, like this, I know that you're a good guy. Like, I know what you're trying to do, but he's just too young. Like, read him a couple, like, yeah, I get it now. But I decided not to wait until he and I could do it for the first time because I wanted to fill it with the magic I feel it deserves to be read with. And I learned from what's his name, Andy Serkis, because I
Oh
listened to
my
it.
gosh, right? He
What a
is
treat he is!
unbelievable.
There's nobody better.
Unbelievable. No way. I listened to a couple of the Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion with him. I mean, it's nuts.
He's
It's so good. It's crazy.
his level of talent to portray a story is unfair. Like this stuff here is I'm starting to do like audiobooks and send out demos because that's what I want to do. And just thinking of how good he is, like he's in a category that I hope I reach one day, but realistically, I know that he is just a gangster.
Well,
Um,
he said something interesting that like he had different like positions that he would be in according to the wording. Or
really,
or the character rather. So, like, for whatever the character was, he had to do that, so that it would, I think, almost put him in the zone of being that particular character, which I find to be fascinating just from a creative, artistic standpoint. I mean, that's pretty remarkable because there are so especially I mean, the Silmarillion alone is just it's an encyclopedia,
that's
basically.
what I've heard.
Yeah.
Now I haven't read the Lord of the Rings trilogy yet or moved past it. I plan
Andy
on it.
Serkis is your guy, though. I mean, that'll
Yeah.
be it's like butter.
His in the Hobbit, he did the rendition of like the scene with the trolls. I don't like you, Hobbit. Like the way that he just the slow and kind of lethargic troll, kind of simple.
Right.
Um, it just inspired me, man.
Or even well, when you hear Treebeard, like it's
I
incredible.
can't wait.
Yeah,
Now,
it's crazy.
it the other character that blew my mind in the Hobbit was Beorn. Beorn. And he just did such a wonderful job. So
Yeah. It's
if
funny
you
because thinking about the audio, like back in the old days when I was a kid, I somehow got a copy of the Star Wars movie just in audio, like just the audio. I loved it. I loved it. So there was not a lot like that, although you could buy maybe tapes where people were starting to put out um, things on tape, but we were poor and I didn't really have any opportunity for that. So, but
I
the
get it.
audio, like story, listening to someone telling a story was always such a cathartic and a beautiful part of my childhood in a lot of ways. I think I had to wrestle as an adult with the idea of it still counts as reading. I think that's maybe that's a little bit more difficult for older folks to kind of resolve and say is the case. But
No, I
um,
get it.
I I do like all of that kind of I do find that there are some places that I'm listening to maybe the audio version of it, but I realize I think I need to look at it because it's not as immersive for me. It's not as immersive for me to listen to it now. I feel
Yes.
like I need to actually read it. It helps me to be more involved and less distracted.
Especially with like fantasy or sci-fi. Tell me if you agree, because a lot of the names are a little nuts. And if I don't see the
Right.
name of TOEFL, because it could be THOUFIL, it
Right.
could be so many different ways. If I see that in the book, that's going to make sense and recognize and keep the continuity of that character throughout. Now, if I'm
Right.
just listening to it, it could become confused, and it does.
Well, that did happen to me just recently. I'm listening to The Written by Ben Galley,
Oh,
And
yes.
well, by the
Great
way,
dude.
I'm loving this book. It's really cool. But Farden is the name of the. I mean, I swear to you, I'm like, what in the actual crap is the name of this? Like, is that his name, Farden? Because you know what I'm thinking. But
Yes, 100.
I just like, in some ways, like, that's the discrepancy for me, is that I need to visually have in my brain the spelling of it before I can
Have
relax. I
have
get
you
neurotic.
have you read any uh oh, what's his name? Baker.
Oh,
Bakker. The
no,
Prince
but
of Northern.
he's huge right now. Like, he's definitely coming into his own. I mean, he's written a ton of books though. So, but I've
Very
not.
philosophical,
Yeah.
but
So,
the names are out of this
are they
world.
really? I've not read them yet.
Anara Surember. Anara Surember.
I think you just had a stroke. Yeah. So
I
need to be.
you kind of have to say it. Anara Surember is the main character's name.
Yeah. It's funny. My father just sent me a message, and he said he's reading N.K. Jemisin's book, and
The one she won the Hubert
I
or
think so.
Hugo.
The
Hugo.
fifth season.
Yeah, the 5th season. Yeah.
And so he basically left me a message saying like what is going on here? Like, the names are so difficult. And I said to him, I said, look, here's the thing, is that you're reading a fantasy book. And so that's why. I mean, the verb, you gotta like kind of get into the zone of what this culture, this world is gonna be like, and it's all gonna be different. And don't let it distract you. Like, just kind of flow with it for a while.
Like Bilbo or Sauron
That's
or
all familiar now because we've heard it for decades and
but
decades
if
and decades.
right, but imagine you'd never heard those names
Right.
before.
Yeah.
So I think what fantasy or sci-fi they both kind of do is lend the author the chance to kind of come up with every aspect of that book to be fictitious and be something that isn't the norm. But it
Yeah.
also requires I know my wife, I'll give her name because she's like, I'll never read a book where I can't say their name, or if it's like Karaskalaskala, I'm just gonna call him Calvin. You know,
That's so funny.
and I get it, but I could never do that. I would have to call them by their names, and I understand why people may not read fantasy for that reason. Uh, Me, it's kind of like you said, it's a time for a mindset that you get in, and you kind of accept it. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out a crazy big weird idea, but why not?
Okay,
So, back when I was young, so I'm 54, and
okay,
so I was born in 1970, and I was, grew up in a time when teachers could beat the crap out of their students,
sure,
just like everyone should experience. But
yeah,
so anyway, I do have these funny little remembrances of, we were all immersed in like Greek mythology and, Roman mythology. And then we had certain core like books that you had to read and you had to know. And so there was this, almost an expectation you'll have certain classics under your belt, and the Odyssey and the Iliad and Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. You get the point. So you had this
hmm
kind of common, and while it might have been a very pale group of men, and only men, certainly it is what it was back then. So anyway, because there was that universal, almost like a foundation, people had a vocabulary where they could communicate about ideas and know what people were talking about. And what happened was, you can see culturally things were flipped on its upside down, which is apparently a TikTok thing right now. Like, so the thing about this is there's I like this. So you
hmm
had an inclusion of more of an appreciation for Native American authors, like I think it's M. Scott
Stephen,
Momaday, or
oh, Stephen
whatever.
Graham Jones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then you had, more of an inclusion, a recognition of the importance of the feminine and female writers, and so they were brought into, and they rightly were supposed to and should have been. Unfortunately, it took a long time for that to start to happen, but One of my all-time favorite writers is a lady named Louise Erdrich, who just came
Ooh.
out with a brand new one. And I'm bringing all this up only because it's still what draws me to literature is the playing around with almost like these foundational universal themes, which is the meaning of life and why am I here? So whether it's fantasy or even a mystery or even a or even a romance for that matter, if it's a serious like dive into the human condition, I'm so geeked about it because I don't really care what the name is. Like I'll get the hang of that eventually, but if you're going to deal with how do you deal with grief and how do you deal with suffering and how do you deal with this feeling of being trapped and not living your dream, like I want it. I want to know about that. And I think that there's some just incredible authors in the fantasy realm, especially that, and science fiction for that matter, that are not given enough credibility or respect, maybe because it just seems like, oh, it's just entertainment, but
Mm.
it's not. This is what makes some of them so profound, is that they're probably even more relevant today than ever before. Example would
Yes,
be
I was like, can you give
would
us
be
examples, please?
if you think about Octavia Butler and her
Yes.
book Kindred, that book right there, of course, is going to wrestle with all sorts of things with race and the idea of being kind of thrown back in time during, in the antebellum South and slavery and the ramifications of that. And she did that in such a unique way,
Oh.
almost like a portal, a time, kind of transference. I mean, you can think Outlander-ish, I suppose. But I feel like just now, I feel like Octavia Butler is massive in terms of people diving into her work. And sh this is huge because she should be. Like what she was doing and how she was writing was so important. And she's playing with massive critical themes of the dignity of the human person
Wow.
and death and race. Oh my gosh, so good.
I had no idea.
So I
I
think,
counted her off.
oh my gosh, please, yeah, do
Not
yourself a
now.
favor. Yeah, she's unstoppable. Leanne knows. She's
I
familiar with
see
her
that.
work. Ray Bradbury is another one. Like Ray Bradbury, if when we were younger, you had to read Fahrenheit 451. But weirdly, I feel like that was almost prophetic, and he's a bit of a poet in the way that he writes, but his book, Something Wicked This Way Comes, I felt
I've
like
read it.
was I'm a I had an experience reading that book. I was on a plane and I was reading Something Wicked This Way Come, and when I was done with a particular paragraph, I remember I stopped and I thought, I think the idea that I just read about in this paragraph, like the way that Bradbury just wrote that, may be the best way a human being could ever articulate an idea like that. It
That's a
was
moment.
surreal. It was crazy. And I thought, this this was a perfect like translation for my brain, whatever
Oh,
he did. So it's kind of those moments where I'm challenged to think about something. People get upset with a little bit of the like you're tipping over business as usual, the apple cart and all that kind of stuff. But I
mhm.
I don't mind it because if we're still dealing with the serious realities of what this thing is called life, and yes, we're being entertained or whatever, then I'm all in. Like it's like listening to a song. Whenever you listen to a different song, it can put you in a feeling, in a mood. You can have a whole time period of your life connected to a particular song. And I think that happens with creative expression, especially if it's something that matters.
Can
Anyway,
I say something totally weird? And it just plays off completely what you just said.
yeah,
There's a band that I listen to, and again, I don't care what anybody believes. Like Grimfell, I love your music. I don't know your beliefs based on your music, and honestly, I don't like. I care because I think that you're a wonderful human being, but at the same time, like my beliefs are solid. And as a Christian person, like Catholic, grew up Catholic, um, I find the biggest, most intense message of good through the darkest music. there's a band called Lamb of God.
Oh, I've
And
heard
if
of them.
you,
Yeah, I've
yeah,
heard of that band.
they are absolutely my absolute favorite metal band. But there is nothing about anybody in that band or what they talk about that you would consider even remotely godly or Christian like. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But I learn through their lyrics of darkness what I believe in the light. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
cool. I get that.
100%.
Well, actually, I would almost word it like this, that you I think one of the greatest disservices to the reality of like good and evil is to make evil almost like a straw man. When you minimize the horror of whatever trauma or racial injustice, or um, pick a scenario.
Yeah.
The truth is that you rob the goodness of that goodness. So nobody was terrifying when we were kids, because that evil was almost overwhelming and all powerful. Um, that made then the underdog of Luke Skywalker, the Great Whiner, uh, even more incredible. Or for that matter, Clark Kent, or Peter Parker. Like oh my gosh, that's me. I also am not. I don't feel that strong against darkness, against the adversary. But it doesn't make that heroic act. It doesn't give it any credence and weight if we minimize the evil.
Oh, 1,000. Yeah, because when Darth Vader's like dying and he takes his hat off, right? You feel for him, right? Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's a humanity about him.
Yeah.
But you can take him in his worst moment and learn about. I love that, man. I have to say the lyrics in particular. It's a song called Omerta, and it says something along the lines of, "Your name's been evoked from the registry. Saint Peter greets you with empty eyes and turns and locks the gate." And the dread in my soul when I heard that for the
Oh
first
yeah.
time, having my beliefs,
Right.
helped. It was more impactful than anything light could have given me at that moment. So yeah, I think that you're right on the wavelength, man. I love that. There's so many different ways to learn, and being receptive to that is a whole nother deal.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Omerta. That's the name of the third book in the Mario Puzo's Godfather trilogy.
I know
So
there's like history to that word, and I don't know it.
it's the Italian code of silence, honor, conduct that emphasizes remaining silent when questioned by authorities or outsiders. So obviously, yeah.
At the beginning of the song, he says, "Whoever appeals to the law is neither a fool or a coward." And then he goes on to saying, "If I live, I will kill you. If I die, you are forgiven. Such is the rule of honor." Um, so that makes sense. I've always kind of wanted to look that up, but I couldn't find enough like base material. So I'm glad that you went into that. I want to check that out.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I had a big fan. I mean, I love music, and I love the craft of songwriting and lyric
so what
writing.
did you do? Produce? I feel like it's like right on the tip of your tongue.
So I did. Well, I did write. I wrote music, and I performed, and then we had a chance to record some cool projects, in Nashville and all that. But it was. I do
You're a humble
remember
man.
the guy who helped produce us. He sang with Kansas. So I mean, he was. Oh my God, he
Only
was an
where my
incredible.
wayward
Yeah, please, that
son.
song is unbelievable. Well, the thing I remember writing some lyrics, and at one point is like, basically, you
Did
need
you
to.
write that song, Chris?
I think Carrie Livgren wrote that song, but "Dust in the Wind," yeah, that's some good
No,
writing.
Carry On My Wayward Son.
No, I
Okay,
did not. I'm pretty sure it was Carrie Livgren.
gotcha.
He wrote a lot of the songs for Kansas. So and then anyway, the long and the short of it is that the challenge and the invitation to write something that is a lot more than just here's something that rhymes. Something like, what if you could write something? I wrote a lyric: "The wicked of the witch inhabits every man," And I love that. I still love that line because it's that idea that we're all messy and we're all broken, or we all struggle with these issues. Like, in other words, like the Wicked Witch is sure, she's the villain for sure, but if, unfortunately, I mean, if you look in the mirror, I think we've all had those kind of moments as well, which is one reason why, I mean, if you remember going back to Star Wars, when he has that like vision, he's with Yoda, and what happens, bam, you know, like he sees himself right under that Darth Vader mask. There's something like we're all a little bit like that. Anyway.
And the Wizard of Oz, by the way, is something that I see myself in every single character, even the Wizard of Oz at the end where he's being a complete fraud. You
Right.
know, I've been that before in my life,
Oh
or
yeah.
moments like that, and it's good to kind of like acknowledge that and learn from it. I
Well,
love
we
that
all,
line.
yeah, we're all that. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Those themes that I can get into when you're writing about something and it's hard to read sometimes. If you ask the question, why is that hard to read? It's probably because it's touching on something in your life that maybe you would rather not see the light of day because it's
Yes,
painful.
it is, and I 100% agree with you. I'll give you. I'm always an open book. I had a drug addiction. I've been sober for a little while, but I had a heroin addiction. So anything that kind of talks about like the act of using a needle or something like that, like I'm putting it down probably, depending on the usage of the wordage and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like if it's too intense of a trigger, like
Yeah.
that's just an automatic put down. Now, again, I've been sober for quite some time, but at the same time, you'll never get away from those intense
Right.
feelings of, well, there's lots of feelings. And then also, tell me if you're the same. I love grimdark, and I have a mixed feelings on that actual word of grimdark, but a darker themed book, if it is only dark to have the shock value, not to kind of contribute to the story of the characters. Me, I'm probably going to put it down because like SA is not something that I'm going to read if it most of the time anyway, but especially if it's just for shock value because it just, I don't know, it becomes repulsive at that moment.
Yeah, I do think, yeah, that's a great point. I do think that the older I've gotten, the more I've tried to allow myself the freedom to put a book down and not be obsessive about making sure I complete it. Yeah, there is a book I read about halfway through it. It's about a year or two ago. And I was so offended. There was
Mhm.
something that happened, and that was probably the most offensive thing I've ever read in my life. And I
Wow.
thought, I don't. Part of me wanted to finish it just so I could give it 0 stars and just rail on it. But it was literally like a junior high like kid used every naughty word and every naughty idea and just wanted to try to get out of his system. And in some ways, okay, that's your freedom. You can do it, and there's going to be a market for it. It's not me though. And so I think getting older, just realizing I want to read something that's gonna provoke in me something that is gonna make me think a deeper thought or ask another question. And it doesn't, like I've said, have to hold to my ideology and theology. I just have to feel like there's something authentic in it. And
Yeah.
this is the cool thing about literature is that what might be authentic and work for me might not work for you or anybody else, and that's okay. It doesn't. I'm not judging you if you like that particular book. Let me use another example.
Please.
So I read Colleen Hoover's Verity. I
Me
think that's what
too.
it's called. Which, by
Yeah.
the way, the joke was after that I thought I probably need to go to confession. This was
Right.
hardcore. Like this was insane. But it was awesome too because the whole idea of like what the hell is going on at the end of this book? Like
Yeah.
who's really crazy here? Like what's going on? In a way, it was awesome. Well, then I read another one of her books, Layla or something like that, and I
I
thought
never read any
this is the
others.
dumbest thing I've ever read. That's my personal opinion. Maybe you love
Mhm.
it. I thought that book was not so great.
You're
Okay. And
allowed to
it,
feel that way
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So, but what I realized is that in some ways the what drew me into Verity was the story, like the naughty, which was probably not as naughty as some of that other stuff. Like there was a bit of a point, and it bespoke the reality of this person, like these obsessive, like insanely all in compulsive tendencies and practices and habits. And I thought, okay, like you know, I'm with you, I'm on this. Okay, this person's crazy, that person's crazy, and then you're like, oh my gosh, which one is it? Who's? And then at the end of that, you still are left with that a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I could read a lot of these books, because if that's what it's going to do to me a little bit, then I'm along for the ride. Whereas I did read another book that was just for the shock value of whatever, a sexual exploration,
Uh-huh.
which again, in some ways, there is a little bit of a place for that universally understood theme. We're all trying to figure out what it looks like to be
Sure.
loved and to love. But I just thought at some point, I don't think that's going to work for me. And realizing that about myself, which is, by the way, in a genre I'm not normally in, was kind of cool, because it doesn't cause me to easily dismiss the genre. And it also causes me to realize there are things about this that I like and that I can maybe learn from or be entertained by. And that's
Yeah.
sometimes that's enough.
I think I like books that make me ask questions with good feelings, bad feelings as well. Like a feeling or theme doesn't have to be good for me to be interested or like excited to learn about it. But when it leaves me maybe a little depressed or traumatized or disgusted, based on me maybe having the opinion of the author using things for shock value that isn't contributing to the story, that's and honestly, I can't give you an example of a time that that's happened. I just haven't picked up a book that god awful. Like I can think of one that at the very beginning, there's something that begins that way, and to kind of like start a book that way is ballsy, but it ends up being a huge part of the book, and it ended up this series is a top 10 series for me.
Hmm.
So it's crazy. I think that it all has its own road that it paves through each person that reads it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we all have our own tolerances. And I like that you said that, Yomatsky.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
Grimfell, dude, yes, overcoming our own afflictions can be the hardest battle we face for sure. 100%. You see yourself in a book and a character and a theme. It may be harder to read. For me, it is, speaking personally. So what are you reading? Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
No, no,
Well,
no, please go ahead.
so I brought up here about maybe 12 books or something like that, that I just wanted
Oh,
to
yes.
show books that I think were really like did something for me. And if that's
I'm
okay.
excited.
Okay, cool. Some of these will be familiar to the audience. Here's the first, Ender's Game.
Oh, okay.
When I read this book, by the way, I think this has got to be one of the best sci-fi books of all time. Um, Certainly within the top 10. That's my personal opinion.
Wow.
And it has a trope in there of course, like a young person trying to figure out where they fit. And it's a classic. It's got to be one of the great classics. Now, Orson Scott Card's an interesting dude.
Hmm.
Orson Scott Card, not that it ultimately matters, but I believe he's kind of from a Mormon background. And
Yeah.
so in some ways, when he plays with the idea of planets and population, it's kind of funny how some of those things show up in obviously in
Yeah.
his books and that religion. I do think this is the best book in that series. Okay, so I do think that the next couple are good, but they're not as good as that. So
What is the
Xenocide,
next one called?
Xenocide and Speaker Up for the Dead, those books, I do think that they are enjoyable. And I can't remember if it was Speaker for the Dead, which basically deals with like an obsessive compulsive disorder that is within one of the characters, which I found to be very fascinating. But this by far is the best. Now, some people get a little bit frustrated with the series, and I haven't read this one, but there is one on Bean, um, which Shadow of the, what's it called? Shadow of the Puppet, Shadow Puppet. It's not in here, but that one I heard that is the most like Ender's Game.
In
So
that
anyway,
series?
in that series, yeah,
Okay.
something like Shadow Puppet or whatever. Here's another one. This is a huge departure. This one's called The Great Santini by by Pat Conroy. Now, this book and his book called The Prince of Tides, those two books, I would not read them back to back, but Pat Conroy, he probably spent the entirety of his life, and he would acknowledge this. He's passed away now, but just trying to deal with the crap that happened in his life, his abusive father and his dysfunctional family. And when you read these books, they all usually take place, kind of in a military family in the Low Country, like South Carolina, North Carolina stuff. And it's just this idea of a kid trying to figure out how to become a man when the only man in his life is destroying everyone.
Wow.
And it's a gut punch. Now, I am a sucker for books that cause you to have those kind of gut punch feelings, and probably because in some ways there's it resonates. Just the dysfunctional family. My father's nothing like the main character's father, but that idea of a family disrupted and hurting is something I'm always sympathetic towards. Okay,
What is
huge.
his last name? Sorry, Pat
Conroy, Pat Conroy,
by Pat
a
Conroy.
legend. I mean, he's a legendary author, and
I can relate with you. By the way, I want to say that like my parents split up at 11, so 1000% understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not a joke, but I think my goal in life was, how do I offer my kids something different than what I had to
1,000,000%.
So, hard right here. The Stand by Stephen King. We could
Oh.
pick a million books by him, but this book right here, The Stand, well, it's a monster book, and it is truly the great battle between good and evil. It is intentionally that. And I love, and I do think that the ending kind of is like, what? Where are we going? What's
I
happening?
haven't read it, so
But
don't tell me.
I'm telling you, it's worth the time and the effort, and the characters you just start to love. I do love that series.
Now, I
or
can't
that
read a
book.
mass paperback because I'm 6'5", 250 pounds, so my hands are too big, and I hate mass paperbacks. So today I was pricing the hardcovers of The Stand, and they're outrageous.
It is
When I
outrageous.
can find one that's I can afford at the time or a little bit better priced, I'm gonna get it, and I hope it's the uncut because I want to go through every page.
Right. So I like hardcover for collecting.
Yes.
And then a lot of times I read with the paperback war, the digital copy. I mean, for something like
100%.
that book, or It for that matter, those two, or the one on JFK, what is it,
11
11/22/63
something.
or something, that those are monster books, and they're all exceptional. But
And at the mass paper, I think my eyes too, it's like hard to read.
oh yeah,
So
it is small
like the
print.
trade paperback, I love.
Yeah.
The mass paperbacks, I'm just not a huge fan.
All right, I'm turning hard right again here.
All
The
right.
Martian by Andy Weir, that and Project Hail Mary. These are exceptional. And
Yes.
my joke was, I hated math when I was in school, and I've never loved math more than when I'm reading an Andy Weir book. So
He makes it relatable.
it's crazy. I'm thinking, where was this guy for me as a teacher growing up? I'd have been a mathematician. Here's another one, Brotherhood of the Rose by David
Ooh.
Morrell. David Morrell created the character Rambo. And which is funny because, that's not like usually a person thinks of literary quality heroes, Rambo.
First Blood, right?
Right. Yeah. No. So, First Blood was the book that David Morrell wrote, and the ending is different than the movie.
Right.
But Sylvester Stallone kind of felt like he wanted to change the ending intentionally, so because of a number of reasons, and good reasons. But David Morrell is called and known as the father of the thriller writer. And there are some great authors that are old school spy novels, like Robert Ludlum and Jean Le Carre, and whatever. So but this idea of a thriller where you're like, oh, I got to turn the page, go, 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 go. Like this, it's intense. And I felt like, for me, David Morrell was one of the first guys that I just couldn't get enough of his stuff. So I read probably most of it. Here's a weird change. These are one's nonfiction and one's fiction. Here's the nonfiction. The Diary of a Bookseller. Sean Bithell. He owns the largest used bookstore in Scotland, and he's got about 3 or 4 books within this world. It's
What's his name?
It's his diary entries. Sean Bithell,
Bithell.
Bythells,
Thank
Shaun.
you.
It's just a day-to-day life of what it's like to run a bookstore, a used bookstore, and the quirky people that he experiences and the chances that he has to go out and look at people's collections to buy. It's crack for me. That, to me, I could do that all day long. Here's another one. This is fiction. John Dunning. John Dunning wrote a series called the Cliff Janeway series. These are like mysteries, but it's with a guy who owned a bookstore in Colorado, which is what John Dunning did. And then he wrote this Cliff Janeway series, and they're all within the realm of literary and used books, and I loved it. Now, I think he had some sort of a physical illness, a stroke or something happened, so he hasn't written and probably won't write anymore. But I loved them back in the day. Now I have to reread them, but I do love it. Molly, you
So
know it. Yeah,
yes. Keep going. Do you have any more?
I do. I just a few more. I promise. I
Please,
won't.
no. You
Okay.
have as many as you want, my friend.
All right.
Seriously.
So, Wistful Ascending by JCM Byrne. Now,
Yes.
first of all, the cover's hilarious to me,
Yo,
but this character, I don't know
it's
why this works, but it so works for me. It is so good.
isn't the whistle so incredibly huge once you
Yes,
read it?
it is. And I love that. It's a world. It's a sentient ship. You're on this ginormous ship. It's like New York
Do you know
City. The
Joe?
ship is. A little, yeah, a little bit on social media. I'm hoping to get a face-to-face time with him. I know that if
Dude,
I
he'll
was
do it
in,
in an instant. He's a great dude.
oh, I know he's so. Have you met him?
Yeah.
Oh
I've
my
had him
gosh,
on a couple times. He's great.
like face-to-face.
No, not like in person, but I've had him on for an interview. He
Oh
sent
yeah,
me his
yeah. I did.
book.
I interviewed him too.
Oh wow.
And I've interacted with him a lot on social media. He's
Isn't
so
he in New
great.
York?
Yes, he is. The city.
Okay.
Now, I'm not far from the city, so we've had a couple times where I thought, well, maybe it was going to work out. We're going to get together. I know it's going to happen. But
It's gonna be
every
a
time he
blast,
has a
dude.
book, I'm so geeked about it. As far as I'm concerned, not in a Kathy Bates sort of way, but I feel like I'm his number one fan. Okay, so I'm not going to
Not
kidnap
in a
him.
Kathy
I'm
Bates
not
sort
going
of way.
to, chop off his legs or anything like
I
that. But
love that I can understand. Like I'm young enough and old enough at the same time to understand that reference. It's at the cusp. It is. I don't think my kids will know.
Annie Wilkes. So there it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just a couple left. I keep trying to push this on
Ooh.
people. Richard Powers, Bewilderment. Richard Powers he just came out with a brand new one, but Richard Powers won the Pulitzer for Overstory, which is oddly, it's a story about trees, but it's so much more. The point is, this book is kind of like Flowers for Algernon, and like a science fiction kind of idea meet together and create something wonderful. It's a family scenario, and yet there's dysfunction. The kid has struggle, whether it's autism or whatever it is, and it's a father and his love for his child. And I think
Relatable.
this book was maybe the best book that I had read a couple years ago.
Wow.
I I don't know why people don't talk about that more. And everybody who has read it says, yes, this is
What you're doing
phenomenal.
right now, Chris, is why I watch your channel. I promise.
Well, I tell you, I definitely have noticed that, and I'm not upset about it, but there are trends where people talk about the same books over and over and over. Great. And I don't have a problem with that. I
Me
like that.
neither.
But I definitely like going to people where I'm going to see stuff that, even if I don't think, oh, that's not really for me, but I love seeing new books. So
I'm
here's a
glad you're not
couple.
talking about Fourth Wing, unless like light your next book, and then
No.
I would be lovely. It
By
would
the
be
way,
lovely.
I haven't read that book, but
Me neither.
I'm not afraid to read that book,
Me
and
neither.
I'm not even afraid to like that book.
Yeah, I think I guess what I'm saying is I'm tired of hearing people's opinion
Oh,
on
I
it. Like
know,
I
I
need to
know.
find out for myself is what I need.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I do
I
think
bought the
sometimes
audiobook.
this is the thing. I was literally just thinking about this today. It's like I get obsessed and I got to buy all these books that everybody talks about, brand new books, right?
Yeah.
But then it takes me a couple years before I actually get to it on a TBR.
Yeah.
And like I'm like thinking I could have saved so much money by not wasting. Right now, I'm finishing Clown in a Cornfield, which, by
I've
the
heard of
way,
that.
is hilarious. But it's like I guess it's not hilarious. It's really about murder and a town falling apart. But I personally think it's hilarious that this is working for me because it shouldn't, but it's so good. Anyway, all right, real quick. Here's a book. Nobody is going to know who this guy is, and I would understand why he wouldn't be appealing. He's a my joke is sometimes he creates a story so that he can tell all of his philosophical views. That's the whole point, it seems like. But this book right here, it's called The Lighthouse, is beautiful. I find it to be beautiful. And it's really a deep thinking book about a man who struggled with some things in life, and he ends up going and running a lighthouse all by himself, and kind of the reality of what do we need to be happy, and the inclusion of another person into that dynamic and what happens, and it's very powerful. Now,
set in Maine.
You know what? It might be, actually. I can't remember exactly where this is located, but it seems like that might work.
Okay.
Michael D. O'Brien is mostly known for it's almost like these Children of the Last Days. It's almost like Catholic Left Behind series type of
Okay.
idea.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is a serious, really serious book that I feel like is good. And then the second one by him is called The Fool of New York City. And this one looks at an artist who is really trying to who's struggling. I mean, I think he struggled with maybe even addiction and like loss and homelessness, and this idea of friendship, and how do you wrestle with belief when your world is falling apart? And oh my gosh,
I can relate.
both of
Holy
these,
crap.
I would be, I think that whether you're religious or not religious, whether you are an atheist for that matter, I think some of these books play on themes that everybody as a human person is trying to understand. So last two, well, same author. I don't know where this guy is, and I don't know anything, but it's about the person necessarily. But David Manuel, I found these a long time ago. They're hardcover mysteries, and it's called a Faith Abbey Mystery. So if you like books by, for example, G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown series, or if you liked Michael Jackson, some of those kind of your brother Cadfell by Ellis Peters. These are like mysteries by a brother or some sort of a clergy. I don't know. I really like this. It's almost like an ecumenical, like brotherhood gathering. It's not monastic. It's not really monks and friars, but it kind of is.
Okay.
But a murder or something happens, and then they solve it. And I'm a sucker for old school murder mysteries and things like that anyways. But those are just a few I thought I've really enjoyed. And so you can see whether it's mystery or historical fiction for that matter, could have brought up a bunch of that, whether it's thriller, whether it's horror, or whether it's
I've noticed you hit on
romance.
all genres.
I mean, almost anything is going to work for me. And I would say, well, except for math, then there's Andy Weir. So
Yeah. So real quick, A Matter of Time. Who was that author that you just
yeah. So David Manuel, I think, is the author here. Yeah, David Manuel. And so A Matter of Roses. I think he's got at least 4 in this series. And they're I don't know. This is like in the Cape Cod kind of area, I think usually. I found it to be enjoyable. So
I can't reach it, but another huge foundational book for me was and it was the very first Stephen King I had ever read, which is weird, I hear, but Fairy Tale.
Huh.
Did you read that book?
No, because it's in the last few years, so it's on my backup.
So freaking good.
See, everybody loved the beginning of it, and then they all went poo-poo with the ending of it.
Oh no. See, well, the reason I'm sure I know the reason why is because
Don't tell me.
Yeah, okay, I won't. I promise. I'm glad you said that. I don't want to ruin that at all. So what I'm about to show you is number 1. Number 2 or 3 would be Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It was wonderful. In the contrast between the beginning and the middle and in the middle and the end is why I loved it. But Ordinary Monsters.
Oh yeah.
By J.M. Marrow.
I'm gonna go after that. I have it in my collection downstairs.
And I'm
Please,
almost done
please
with
say
it.
Twilight. Please say Twilight.
You know, I don't have those on my shelf yet. I'm not a guy that's going to say no, but you may see Twilight on the shelves. Who knows? I
Listen,
like a
I've read them.
vampire.
I've read them all.
So honestly, how did they hold up?
It's a television show. Like it's fast paced. I mean, it's young adult. I read
Okay.
those when those came out, like with probably because my daughter was in middle school then, and she was interested in reading it. And yeah, we all, my wife and I, we read them. And I'm
Awesome.
not, I don't care. I mean, yeah, it's not great, like literally. I mean, it's what everybody wants. They want to be fought over.
Have you read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff?
I've started that. I'm about a third of the way through.
Oh, it gets good, dude. It's like the vampire story that's macho.
But
Um,
I like,
very foul mouth,
I don't
but
mind
that
that stuff.
I don't
Yeah,
either.
that doesn't bother me at all.
He's
And
very creative
actually,
too with the F
yeah,
word.
I like it's that first person. It's like it's almost like Name of the Wind kind of storytelling.
Yeah, he's in prison, he's telling
I
his
I dig it.
story,
I dig it.
and what I also loved about that is, like, it's not the traditional, like, the Silver Saint where he bites the neck. It's they smoke the dried blood, which makes it kind of seem like a drug
That's
addiction,
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
and
that was
I'm like, I
interesting,
get
isn't
kind
it?
of the desperation he's feeling
Oh
as
yeah,
far
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
but anyway, I was sent the arc for book 2, Bringer of Dust,
Okay, that's
and
cool. I did see that that's coming out. Is it out yet, or is
it's
it
out.
not?
It just came out, yeah, like, a little less than a month ago. And I haven't finished yet, but if you love a gothic Victorian London feel with, like, a gas lamp, with a fantasy side on it that's not so far out there that it's not like, it's very believable what's going on here.
Yes.
You're gonna dig it, man. I hope if you ever read it, please, I
Oh
would love to
yeah.
know, even if you hate it, like, I would love to hear your thoughts.
No, I'm gonna go after it. I'm gonna go look at it downstairs tonight even. The thing
Wow.
about it is that I'm a sucker for the academia kind of trope anyways, because I'm in that world. And I've been I'm joking. I mean, I've been in school my whole life. I mean, and I'm still in school. It's so ridiculous because I'm teaching. So
And
there's a part of me that's I'll always gravitate towards that. I will tell you this. Here's a let me see if I can remember this. Tobias Wolff.
I've heard of
Tobias Wolff is the name of this, and I think it's called Old School. I'm gonna just look at this real quick
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
let me tell you right now that's serious though. Like, and it's not a fantasy setting. It's no, Old School is the that's the movie with Will Ferrell. Okay, wait a minute. That can't be right. Tobias. Maybe I'm thinking of Tobias Wolff. What the disregard. I don't know what the crap I'm trying to say right now. Old School Summary. No, I mean, it seems like that's the name of it here. Tobias Wolff. uh, Maybe that's right. Anyway, it kind of has a little bit of a Catcher in the Rye. It has a little bit of a. There's a number of books by Tobias Wolff that I'm a big fan of. He's a kind of a serious writer. When you mentioned what you're saying about this book, Ordinary,
Ordinary Monsters.
I keep thinking that was what Lev Grossman was trying to do with Magicians. Maybe everybody was trying to say, well, this is like an adult or college version of Hogwarts.
The title threw me off. I thought it was just like A and B, like academia.
I wasn't a huge. I read it. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Mm.
I felt like the characters were not. They didn't endear me to them. That's
The
the truth.
the academia part in this book, like, it doesn't start out that way. Like, you get character depth, as like crazy character depth and story well before you even realize there's that part of the story at all. So
It's cool.
yeah, that's a crazy cool take on it, because it
See,
doesn't start that way.
I think what I've realized about myself, and everybody says this. I mean, I think Mike at Mike's Book Review and most anybody who's doing book content, like I need to be drawn to the character, to care about the character. And what I realized about myself is, like, I don't think I'm military science fiction, or I'm just straight up battle
Yes.
motif. That's not my thing. I'm okay with that. Like, some people get into it and that's what they love. Some people, they're so geeked about the idea of the battle and the weapons. And I personally, like, I just listened recently to Old Man's War with Joe Haldeman. And by the way, that's a classic for the sci-fi world. And there's a
I just
lot of
met
stuff.
him, dude.
It's really,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Like,
I haven't
I
read it
think
yet,
that's
though.
an important book. But what drew me to that book wasn't the battle scenes. It's the character in this it's forever war. I mean, it's his story. It's him. And
John
so
Scalzi,
y- well, John Scalzi's okay.
the author.
I'm having a Old Man's War is John Scalzi. I love that book.
Mhm.
Why was I bringing that in there? It's the Forever War with Haldeman. So whoever the main character is with Haldeman's book, I can't remember his name, but that was what drew me into that book, was the character. Anyway, I'm sorry. I think
No,
I
no,
said,
no. I love that. And
oh
I'm
my gosh,
excited to
Scalzi's
read a
book. I
couple.
could have included Old Man's War. I thought that was awesome.
I'm trying to find. So the reason I'm trying to find it is this seems biased, and I would understand if you threw it out of your attention. Anybody watching too, if you just thought it was a biased. But the narrator for Ordinary Monsters will have you caring about those children characters and have you weeping at every bad thing that happens to
Hmm.
them and cheering for everything that good happens for them because of how like there's Andy Serkis and then there's this guy.
Huh.
I'm trying to find his name real quick if you don't mind because it's
No.
so I've read the book. I've also read it through with the narrator and this is a very few and far between thing for me. It is better with the narrator. He is absolutely incredible. There's a little kid named Marlowe, and the way that he takes on the innocence and the fragileness of their voice, you just can't help but crumble.
Hmm.
Real
I'm
quick.
trying to see how like where they show the narrators for that. It should be in the
Oh, here it is. Ben. I'll put it in the chat.
on Wookiee, right?
On Wookiee, yes. Yes, 100%. And his voice is just pure gold. God blessed him with vocal cords that could charm. Yeah. Ben Anwookwe. But he gives those characters such I don't know. Like you have these thoughts about the characters and being young, the struggles they go through, and then the voice that he puts on them just breaks your heart in the best way.
Do you listen to them at 1.5 speed, or do you keep it at the normal?
1.5 to 2.
Yeah, me too.
You're okay. I'm glad to know that. I hear people like, no, I just like the art of them. Well, I think it's still art. I just think that like my brain is
I
odd.
know, dude. I know.
Like, and I like to hear things fast and kind of keep it going.
That's funny.
So what are you reading right now, man? You reading anything? You deep into anything at the moment?
Oh yeah. I mean, I probably read a couple dozen books at a time. I have a problem.
Okay, so I thought I was weird for that.
No. Well, part of it is my attention span. I can easily get distracted.
Yes.
I'm probably close to halfway through Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare or whatever. I'm reading also Exhalation by Ted Chiang, which, by the way, is a collection of short stories. The first one was phenomenal. I really loved that.
Who wrote Clown in a Cornfield?
Adam, Adamcesare, Cesare.
Okay.
Or Cesare. Ted Chiang does Exhalation. I started, and this is where it gets cool. I'm about, I don't know, a third or half of the way through Mushroom Blues by Adrian Gibbs. So I'm hoping to interview him soon.
Yeah, he's crazy freaking nice, dude.
Artificial Wisdom by Thomas Weaver, which is super fascinating, kind of the whole idea of the AI monster a little bit here. I just finished Jason Rekulak's Hidden Pictures. And I would say this, that the author right now that I'm kind of geeked about, the writing, he's way better than I would have just guessed, which is super probably ridiculous to say that. But Ronald Malfi is
Ooh,
like
yes.
holy cow. So there's a collection of short stories he has called Ghost Written, but I am reading his newest one. I just started that. Somebody said it's a little bit like it. And I thought, okay, well, that's cool. I just finished Grady Hendrix' How to Sell a Haunted House, which I thought which was wonderful. And then yeah, I mean, there's a million others that
So
I'm
I'll start
reading.
for a couple then. If you remember a couple, fill it in at the end. So have you read any Christopher Rocchio?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
first of all, like the thing I'm really curious about him as an author anyways. I'd like to interview him at one point, but partly
He'd
I
do it,
heard
I
that
promise.
I heard he had a little bit of a journey back into his
He
faith
did.
life, and I'm kind of curious about how that's going to show up for him with his writing, or if he's not going to, or if he is going to. Just kind of curious about that from an author standpoint.
You should
But
I would love
he's a
if you went back
genius.
and gave me some thoughts on my interview with him. It was one of
Oh,
like my
I
top
would love
favorite
to.
ever. I would love to know what you got
He's
from it.
easy to listen to. So I'd be pumped to do that. I haven't
Now, this is just after I got done finishing Empire of Silence, and that's still I'm halfway through the short stories. I don't remember what it's called. In
oh yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
book and 1 and 2.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I thought that was
But
awesome.
wow, I'm
He's got
just
like
so
3
impressed.
volumes of that. It's so good. Hey,
And
I want to tell you a funny story with this. So I think I first heard about Rockio. I don't know if it was with Petrick
uh,
or whomever, but you couldn't find Empire of Silence in hardcover anywhere.
no, you couldn't.
So I somehow on eBay I found it, and they were I don't know if it was an auction or if you could straight up buy it. I think it
Under
was auction.
$1,000.
Dude, it was under $100.
Wow.
So I put a bid in on it, and I was terrified because I was afraid that I was gonna. I've never had this happen where every couple minutes I stayed up and somebody was, is that signed? Yeah. So this one was signed as well. So I bid on it, and then somebody outbid me like probably 10 minutes before it was going to close. And then I ended up getting it. I
Oh,
have
you
never,
did?
I did, but I've never had more anxiety over purchasing a book in my life. And I thought I can never do that again. This was like an addiction behavior. There was something
Yes.
so like obscene about it, but I have it, and I will never. It's never coming out of the
Chris,
plastic.
it is
I'm telling you.
scary how much everything that comes out of your mouth is my life, dude. I have told my wife on endless amounts of nights, if this ever comes out, if I ever see it for under $100, like I'm just gonna charge the card and I'm gonna apologize later.
Right.
And then he did a reprint of the hardcovers,
Yes.
and
Now
I went that route.
they're nice, right? So I'm
And
not upset
then
about it. I mean, yeah. So whatever. I have probably the original, and it may not be
yes,
valuable, but I'm not planning to ever sell that. That's the funny thing.
well, it's
So
just knowing that it's like coveted, and
I know
I don't. That's the
hello, my
beautiful thing. Like I
precious.
got it exactly, and that's worth something. It is. Now I'm trying to see, and I'm sure it does, and it should, because I shouldn't be like gifted with like a first print because it should say second print because it is. And he's went between like Daw and um
Well, what was it? It was Bane, wasn't it?
Bane. Yeah, Bane. And they
Yeah.
just bought once they bought the rights back, they're like, okay, so many people are going to buy this hardcover because they were
Yeah.
like us, just freaks over like wanting it.
Right.
And then the so yeah, that's part of what I would recommend. So obviously you know what it is.
Yeah, but
Okay.
by the way, though, I think that again, that's that first person kind of testimony. I love that. I
Even
mean,
knowing the ending, it's like, how can I know the ending and still be completely enthralled by what's going on
right.
right now?
But again, I think part of this is because he's playing with these themes that are universal, like that idea of loss, of losing everything, of not being loved, of not being wanted by a parent, by
Yes.
I mean, betrayal, and anyway, I mean, ultimately,
Not living up to daddy's standards
yeah.
and like wanting to, but never getting that ever.
I want to know how much Doctor Who is in his life, because that whole idea of I destroyed a world. worlds.
Well, I know that Roman Empire was huge,
Yeah.
like as far as how he writes. Now, this just came out. I got the arc of this, and I
Oh,
was
I see
like,
what you got. I don't have it.
dude, it is stupid cool.
That's
So that's
so
the
awesome.
arc, and I bought. I gotta show it off. It's like you appreciate the beauty of these things. Where the hell is it? I gotta grab it if I can. Oh, there it is. It is. I don't know if you're a Norse guy, but my last name is Sorensen.
Yeah.
And I've traced my ancestry straight to Denmark. So I like my
That's awesome.
ancestors most definitely were seafaring people. So John Gwynne would be he's my favorite author. Him and Ryan Cahill, two of my favorite authors.
I almost brought Ryan Cahill's book up, that first in the series.
Isn't it just a warm cup of tea?
First of all, I thought this scratches the itch that I've been trying to scratch. Like
the
this
lodge and like
Oh,
the
yes.
mead and the dragons and the friendship and
Yeah. I just bought the new John Gwynne book, the hardcover from England, and it's signed.
oh, I'm so envious.
But
I'm so envious. John Gwynne's my favorite, dude.
oh my gosh, like he's
a Viking Norse representing gangster, dude.
right.
And he actually reenacts the stuff.
I know,
He's got
it's so funny.
chain mail and
It's awesome.
Matt, dude, what's going on? It's good to see you over there, dude. If you're on TikTok, man, which I don't know, I don't remember.
Oh
if
man,
you
I
are.
love his stuff.
Dude.
Because of him, I started reading the Wandering Inn, and
yeah, dude, me too.
It was a great recommendation.
What a rabbit hole that is, too.
Yeah, well, like I'm just gonna say, well, like 1,700 pages for like a book. Like, bro, do I get at least 3 counts on Goodread for that? Like, come on.
It kind of sets the pace for you at that kind of range. Like, I don't have to because I'm never going to get through this fast. Let's just take it easy.
I know,
like,
that's
let's just take it.
I'm gonna take the whole year to read volume whatever. So
yes, hella good Matt recommendation. But thank you so much, man. Me and my wife. The other half is her graphic art. She's got her DTF printer. She's got her hat presses and all that. She's got her sewing machine. And then I was lucky enough to grab this side. It's going to look better eventually behind me, but I'm still putting shelves in and stuff. But we're in the works of it, and I'm glad. It's a cool thing. So thank you, man.
I'm a fan for the shelves. Yeah,
thank you.
I built all those. So like the whole idea, floor to ceiling shelves. That's kind of our jam here.
So you know that. Tell me if you had the same experience as me. I well underestimated the weight of these books.
Dude. It needs to be in studs.
Oh, well, it was in studs, but I still needed to add more because books are so freaking heavy.
Yeah, that's funny.
So okay. Oh, here.
What is that? Yeah, because I think is that the new Sullivan? Is it Sullivan?
No, so Norse. My favorite author and Norse author is John Gwynne. If you've read the Bloodborne series, Fury of the God comes out the 22nd.
That's the one I got. I got the signed copy of that. I'm so freaking pumped.
Dude, that is so cool.
See, the thing about that, his hardcover books they're like $1,000. It's unbelievable.
Well, most of them were through the Broken Binding, which this is through. Or sometimes the UK did it like right at the beginning of the publisher of the book. But yeah, you're right. They're stupid expensive. And I have none of them in hardcover, but I would love to. And that's a grab right there. Congrats, man.
Yeah.
But this would be my next. This would be the next.
But who is that?
This is Anthony Ryan.
Yeah.
He wrote Blood Song. He did the Covenant of Steel or Covenant of Steel. And then he took this, and John Gwynne gives the blurb on the back, and it says, a gritty, heart-pounding tale of betrayal and bloody vengeance.
That's awesome.
If you love Norse, if you love Viking stories, this is very character-driven, such as John's, but in a different way. You know, prose is so different. From author to author, very different from John's, but in a great way. Now, this guy that I'm about to hold up is a buddy, and he is. So I'm 6'5". I thought I was tall. He is this guy. His name is Nick Horvath. He grew up in Minnesota. He lives in New Zealand. He played professional basketball with a lot of the names that we all know in the NBA. He's retired since, and he's a physics teacher. But he wrote the best action noir book I've ever read.
Is it
and it's called
Sledge?
Sledge versus the Labyrinth. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat right now that can vouch for me. Yep, Sledge. Dude, when it comes to pure badassery, this is the book that I would recommend.
Sledge versus. Okay, well, first of all, this is awesome because I've never even heard of it. That's a huge deal for me.
He's a good
And
dude. He teaches
yeah.
physics,
All right. Well,
I believe at a high school.
all right. Well, I just bought that one.
Oh,
All right,
you're
there we
gonna
go.
be so happy. Oh, it was I got to read it when it was like before it was published, and he's never written anything other than this. And when I read this, it was like 2 a.m, and I messaged him like, "What's going on, bro? Like you have like done something with this. It's so good."
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty pumped about giving that a go, and I like the idea of the Norse mythology, and I mean, I think that stuff would work for me. So, but I think just because it's Anthony Ryan alone would be enough for me to say I'll give that a whirl.
Well, the character based,
Yeah.
even if you don't relate with, and I can agree with you in my taste. I'm not a huge like constant Malazan. Still doesn't work for me.
Okay, let me just say I listened to that first one with Malazan
Mhm.
and Gardens of the Moon, and I still don't know if I understand what happened at the end of that. Like,
That's the common thing.
which is okay. I don't have to understand everything right away, but I mean, it didn't motivate me to say I'm going on to the second book right away.
That's what I
Which
hear. It's like
I
a
don't know.
job.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I care if that's under my belt. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I read all of Malazan. Okay, cool. So for some people,
Now that's Matt's favorite
I
series
know,
of
I
all
know.
time.
Listen, and because of that, because of reviews from him and the like, I haven't written it off.
Me
But
neither.
I think the truth is that I don't think I enjoyed the narrator.
Mm.
So I think that for me as an older guy,
He's over the top.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm trying
The
to say.
narrator is very over the top.
I feel like it's a caricature. I mean, it's just
Hello, little girl. My name is Ellis. And it's like, bro, like I get it. Like I
just rein it
respect it,
in.
but it
Like,
was
just relax, buddy. And
yeah.
we got about 30 more hours to go. I cannot. You got to calm
Like, yes, your energy level is like not matching mine. I'm in bed right now, dude.
down.
So I got these today. So these are going to be. So I said when I got a Tad Williams book, and Matt, I know that you weren't a huge fan of this, and I respect that, but I think I will be because I like a slow-paced, epic, fantasy classic. And I got this today, and it's just the freaking most beautiful book. Tad
Oh my
Williams,
gosh,
The
that looks
Dragon Boat
incredible.
Chair.
Where did you get that? In the mail, or did you go out somewhere?
So I
A while?
refuse to do like a monthly book box to any other company than the Broken Binding, and that's where this is from. I do
So
a
they have a
fantasy,
monthly thing? Well,
fantasy,
that's not
and
good for me to know. That's not good. That's not
they
gonna be
have they have a fantasy, which is where this came from monthly. The last ones were the Jade Legacy, the Greenbone Saga.
yeah, yeah.
And then they have a sci-fi one that they just opened up a couple
Good
months ago,
Jesus.
and I just got the very
I'm in
first
trouble.
sci-fi book,
Oh, wow.
Three Body Problem by
Yeah.
Shijin Liu.
Well,
So these
this
both
is a
came today.
problem. Yeah. This is not good. I don't need to hear this.
I remember your video about like some of the, and by the way, God Killer is something I can't wait to read.
Really? It's so funny because
Yes,
I have like
it's
I
in the
think
plastic.
somebody was like, "Oh, Lumicrate," and I thought, "Oh, that's kind of cool. I'll check that out." So I have about, I don't know, a year's worth of Illumicrate stuff, which honestly, it just felt like, I feel like this is for, I mean, this is going to be a little bit probably crazy to say, but young adult and
You're not wrong.
I'm not sure I was the demographic for that. But now this broken binding, that could be a problem.
The
Yeah,
thing that
not
Broken
good.
Binding does is, I don't know, people probably take this wrong too, but I don't care. It's like this is the dads and the men of the fantasy and
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Oh, you just pissed off a whole
I
demographic
did.
of people.
It's okay
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Because they also have female authors that I can't wait to get to as well. So one being what God Killer, what Kaner,
I don't even. I
I
mean, I
can't
have the
remember.
book, but I haven't read it yet. So
Either way, both of those books, and I believe it's a duology. I cannot wait to read another one. One Dark Window. I can't remember the name of that female author. Either way, yeah, this is like the old school classic
yeah,
fantasy. And then they've got the Sci-Fi Monthly now, or bi-monthly, bi-monthly.
that's
So I'm
so
excited
funny.
to read those. Have you
Yeah,
read any? And one last thing, and this is my last recommendation, and then we'll kind of like finish things
you're
up.
good.
Philip Fracassi. Hold on.
Okay, why do I know that name?
Here, I'll show you. Where is it at? Where is it at?
I forgot.
I'm
I
gonna
think
have
I
to find
just
this
was
one.
referencing him.
Ugh. So he had, first of all, Philip Fracassi was a name I wasn't super
Oh,
familiar with at all. And
I
then
haven't read his stuff yet.
Mike's book reviews started reading this book called Boys in the Valley, and I said, if Mike is reading it, I need to read it.
Yeah.
And he's like, him and Matt are those two guys for me. So I read Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. Then I interviewed him.
Did you really?
Yeah,
I think you told me that. Yeah, actually, that is cool. I want to go watch that interview because I've heard nothing but great things about that book, Boys in the Valley. I've heard it's amazing.
it's a Catholic orphanage for boys, like young boys, and it's scary if you're not into kind of like the Catholic orphanage, some demonic possessions, which kind of doesn't represent the novel very well because it's not as hardcore as what I'm making it sound, but it is creepy and there is some violence. But I thought it was a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'll put that on my little cart here and see. This is again, I think I'm not sure that I felt like there was another book by Fracassi that I had been looking at.
Gothic.
Yeah, maybe so. Sometimes I wonder which one to start with an author when I'm getting ready to give their kind of their catalog a go.
So Boys in the Valley, and I know this seems biased because I love it, but from what I understand is people who read his work like all the time or have read all of his stuff say to
Yeah.
begin with Boys in the Valley or Gothic or the short story collection that has Alter in it, which they're making a Hollywood movie out of right now.
Huh. I'm trying to see if I already have Gothic, but
Something
yeah.
about the void, beyond the
So
void.
it's funny because I haven't done a ton of horror and but this year I've definitely gotten a little bit more involved. So, it's on my radar. There's another book out that's gotten a lot of buzz called Brother, and
Oh,
that I heard is pretty creepy. So, um, I don't
yeah,
know.
I'm into the creepy. I don't need like a lot of like demonic stuff or like violence, but there's a creep factor that you don't need to talk about. Like there's one on Interview with the Devil, and it's just about like demons kind of showing their eyes or like ghosts in shadows, and that's about as dark as it gets, but it's creepy.
Yeah. This Brother is written by a guy named Anaya, or a lady, I'm sorry, forgive me, Ahaborn. So I don't know really
Oh,
much about this except that it's getting huge reviews.
Allborn,
Yeah, maybe that's how you pronounce
AHL.
it. No, it's Ahiborn.
Yeah, she wrote. I can't remember the name. She's written a lot of horror, but I didn't know
So
she had one called Brother.
I think for me, the horror one that I've kind of been resonating with outside of the Clown in the Cornfield, but was the Ronald Malfi and the Clown in the Cornfield. I still don't know if I can take that seriously because I say that and I just want to start laughing, and I think it's a teen kind of thing, but I'm enjoying it. It's a good no brainer. But this Ronald Malfi, I don't usually get freaked out or afraid reading a book.
Hmm.
Maybe the tub scene in The Shining,
Okay.
and there was I think there was a library scene in It. Those two were a little bit like what the crap's going on?
Allborn wrote Seed, Seed.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
another
that does.
crazy one.
See, that does sound familiar there. Anyway, so I'm not usually the kind of guy that's like, I can't wait to be terrified today.
Seed, the dedication in Seed is to Ania's brother. It says, "To my brother who fought demons and lost."
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, brutal. It starts out that way, like the dedication.
Yeah.
So it kind of like sets the tone because we all kind of know what that means.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
That is rough.
It is.
Anytime that there's something dealing with, end of life and,
Yeah.
loss like that is just, see, I do appreciate though somebody wrestling with that. My wife's in therapy, like that's what she does. She's a therapist. And so
Uh-huh.
there's a misnomer that says that if you talk about it, that somehow it's an instigator for it. But for people going through that, talking about it is not the initiator. It's something that can be very helpful
Yeah.
in processing that. So for people who have wrestled with that, I especially appreciate I think Matt Haig does a lot of that in his books, like The
Mm.
Midnight Library, and he's written a lot about depression in his books.
It
So,
takes somebody special talking about it with delicacy,
oh yeah,
because
yeah,
I have been there, during
yeah,
drug use, that's a bottom you
yeah,
hit.
yeah, yeah,
So I love to hear those success stories, but the
yeah.
ones that aren't successful are hard to
Oh,
read for sure.
yeah,
Because potential after those feelings is a very big thing. Like there's so much potential after those feelings. Like people just don't.
yeah,
I didn't want to give it that chance, and I know that other people that didn't get to get that chance would have been so surprised.
yeah.
I know that's
Well,
kind of deep, but I think that kind of plays into a lot of the books we read.
yeah. I mean, as a parent, I mean,
Mm.
just knowing that your kid could be struggling with something like that it's paralyzing. You,
Oh,
you know.
perfect word, paralyzing,
So,
100%. Cinepom, by the way, you're on X, you said, Chris. So I highly recommend. She doesn't like to read a lot of like physical books or digital books. She likes to just listen. And she is the queen of audiobooks. If she says it's a good audiobook, that's law.
that's cool,
Yeah.
actually.
And so you should.
Cinepom, you're on X. So I think I'm on X with the Real Bookaholic, something like that, and or the Bookaholic. I don't know how to access it with.
Just if you ever find a time, just send me just Beard of Darkness. I think that's all it is, Beard of Darkness.
Yeah.
Throw me your link or whatever, and we'll throw you in the middle of things.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's awesome. So thank you so much for the contribution. You always do, and I really appreciate you.
Don't you think it's interesting how I love this, that if you go to TikTok, there's a different kind of community there. There's some overlap, but it's a different world. And I did YouTube for a while. I had a number of things. I think I'm sticking with interviews on my YouTube channel. I think that's what I'm going to do
I think that's a good decision.
coming forth. But I like the TikTok avenue. That's kind of where I've been flowing. But what I found with Instagram and Twitter, I put up stuff all the time on both of those platforms, but I really don't get much interaction with people on those. And
It
uh,
takes more time to build on those ones. Now, it took me a year to get a community on X, but now that I do, I'm so glad that I did it.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have a decent amount of followers on X, but it might be my real name and not the Bookaholic. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll find you. I'll do
I'm
some.
getting old, Some the new platforms all the time are. I'm gonna need it like a
I
young kid.
think that you work the TikTok. The reason for TikTok, you hit that perfect because that's the reason I come for is you do a lot of videos and they're not stupid long. Even the ones that you called long aren't
Yeah.
long in my opinion,
Well, that's kind.
and they're full of recommendations and why personally to you recommended them, and
Yeah.
that's the epitome, man. I'm telling you, here anytime your stuff's gonna blow up any moment, and I get to say that I got to talk to you. Great.
Oh, you're kind. I will say that I am liking, there's a couple of things that I'm starting to play with. One is this idea of Have You Heard? I love that series, which is like little behind the scenes about authors and their kind of their creation. Like there's some kind of neat little tidbits about an author that I like to include, and that's been doing well. And then I just think I like this idea of like I may read it and I may not read it. I just think that's so stupid and hilarious. But
Yeah.
it's the typical TBRs and these are the ones that I'm going to get through, or this is what I read for that month. I always like that stuff. And I always like book hauls and things like that. But there's a part of me that's like, what makes me stay with a content creator? I'm always curious about why am I going to swipe past someone? Like, what are they're boring me. Why am I bored with this? Like, I love books. So, and then I just realized there's got to be humor. There's some hilarious people out there putting some great stuff out.
I think that you love the the guy that I'm gonna have on tomorrow, Jeff Young from
Yeah,
Bloodfire Jeff, dude.
dude, he's awesome.
I
First of
love
all,
him for the same
he
reason that I love
he's
you.
freaking hilarious to me. He is
Yeah,
cracking me up.
he's like subtly, retardedly hilarious,
Oh
like
my gosh,
incredibly. It's like
please.
subtle though at first.
His beard alone is, I feel like he could star in any, movie he wanted with that beard. I think the beard has started in a movie without him, but
I'm gonna when we first start the live tomorrow, I'm gonna say something along like I don't know what it is, but like you're one handsome son of a gun. Like he's got the bald head, he's
I
got the
know,
beard.
right? Right.
Uh, so it's
He
gonna be
does
fun.
music too. I mean, he's got
He's a
some,
metalhead.
he's got his he's still doing it. So it's kind of cool. I like when he shares a little of that.
And he brings some unexpected opinions, like about that, like Hallmark movie book that's been going around. Like he really loved it, and I love that he wasn't
Yeah,
afraid to say
yeah.
it.
I know. I do think that's funny. What was it? Yeah, because he did a whole thing with uh, I think that's what I like though about the community is that most people who are reading books have probably been made fun of at some point in their life because they were reading books. And the whole idea that somebody's getting ripped on because they like a genre that others don't like, it's kind of like, yeah, screw you. You know what?
Yeah,
People can just read whatever they want to read. And I had a friend in high school that was going to only wear black until there was world peace. He finally decided he wasn't going to win that argument. But
that's a tough.
I mean, so there's some weird, quirky kind of things that happen in our lives. And so
Yeah,
if you're only reading a particular genre for most of your life, that's great. Enjoy it. And then who knows? Maybe
it's
you'll
like me
like
as a
something else.
human. It's just like the only thing I hope about you or what you're doing, no matter who you are, is that you're just enjoying what you're doing. Because I want to see happy people.
Yeah.
I think more people need to talk about their happiness, and it would just fill the room with more happiness. But
That's
man,
it.
I have to say, I have not. I don't know if ever. I'll have to check. Had a 2 hour and 2 hour and 2 minute conversation with
Yeah.
somebody, and it seemed like 3 minutes.
Oh, you're very kind. Well, I don't know if anybody watched it tonight, but I was pleased when I saw Matt show up. I mean, that made me feel like
Oh, there's
that's pretty
36
awesome.
people watching right now.
What?
Yeah, I thought
That's
you could see that.
crazy.
So that's been
I'm
pretty much
still
it.
over here in whatever this platform is that we're using.
Oh,
So
StreamYard. Yeah, it says it up
yeah,
there, top left. Maybe just for me. I don't know.
yeah, it's
But
all good.
between X and YouTube, yeah, that's been consistent.
Wow.
Uh,
Well, that's kind of cool.
what's going on? What's going on, Brian? Man, it's good to see you.
The Renegade.
The Renegade, yes. It's good to see you, brother. Thank
That's
you guys
cool,
for being
man.
here. So, Chris, I have to say, man,
Do
thank you
your
so
thing.
much for sticking with me. We went down some rabbit holes, but you kept up like a champ. And
No,
I'm
you're
just
awesome.
thankful that you took the time away from your wonderful, huge family to hang out on my channel. So
Oh
huge
my gosh.
thanks, man.
I loved it. I hope we see each other again soon, and maybe I can do a little interview with you guys. But all right,
I
cheers to
never
you.
have anybody on that I won't have on 3 or 4 times. I promise.
Yeah, but
So
there's a lot we can learn from each other. So anyway,
100%.
I appreciate you. Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
So everybody that was live, thank you so much. Your comments came and came and came, and then I'm just so thankful you were here. Everybody that watched us on replay, it was such a fun live to do. Hopefully, the next one you can catch live, which, by the way, will be tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern with the second book talker I'll have, Chris being the first, Bloodfire Jeff Young will be the second, and I can't wait. He looks oddly familiar. I will post the thumbnail tonight before I go to bed, and I hope to see you all there tomorrow because it's going to be just as fun as this one. I cannot wait. Thank you so much, Chris, again, and we
Thank
will
you guys.
talk very, very soon. Y'all have a wonderful night, morning, evening. Share, like, subscribe. Have to say all the YouTube stuff, but we will end with see you next time.